Welcome to the Self-Belief and Influence podcast, where we talk with people who have great influence in the Metro Detroit business community. We discuss all aspects of their journey, including the moments where they have had to draw deeply on their self-belief and inner drive to achieve their vision. My name is Keith Baldwin, and my co-host is Nathan Hardecki, and our podcast is sponsored by Regal Payments and Push Media. These conversations with our diverse guests will potentially make you re-examine your ideas about people, business, and life in general. Here's a taste of what's coming up today.
I just asked myself, is this the point in my life that's going to break me? Is this going to break me? So that was a difficult point. And then self-belief for me is like looking back, and I just, you tell yourself stories. That's what I think it's important. Tell yourself stories, who you are, where you're going, and where you've come from.
Let's explore and scrutinize together as we unlock the mind of today's guest to provide you with inspiration and tangible takeaways that you can choose to apply in your life. Today's guest is David Lawrence. I'm excited to talk with David, who owns MECA, which is Michigan Elite Conditioning for Athletes. David is way more than just a personal trainer. He's developed his brand and his locations over the past 10 years in a very competitive industry. David is now the go-to guy for many pro athletes in NHL, NFL, and many other sports. Among his clients are people like Aiden Hutchinson and a number of hockey players. You'll hear from David about his challenges growing the business, his ideas on health and wellness in general, some of the mistakes he's made, and some of the mistakes he sees other people make. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you here. And I've got a lot of questions for you about your rise the past 10 years. I was lucky enough to know you 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about when you opened your first place. But I wanted to start the podcast rather than going straight into your background. I saw recently you had posted 5 healthy habits, and I thought that would be a good thing for people to hear. I know the number one is something that I struggle with. You said of 5 healthy habits, some easy things you can do is 1, stop eating after 7 p.m. Is this something you struggle with, or it's pretty easy for you not to eat after 7?
No, it's definitely something that I've struggled with. I think a lot of people in our society today are just overwhelmed with all the different things that life, brings on us right now. And people forget to take care of themselves. So it's 6, 7 o'clock at night. Maybe they've eaten well during the day. Maybe they haven't, but they're usually stressed. And anything that you consume after 7 p.m. is probably not going to be beneficial for you. Typically, after 7 p.m., after a long, stressful day, people aren't like binging on broccoli at night.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh my gosh, when was the last time you...
Oh, they're dipping it in ranch, which is
right,
good.
Yeah, right. But like, when was the last time you heard it's like, oh my gosh, Keith, I was so stressed out last night. I just went home and I couldn't stop eating broccoli. And so it's usually, like maybe a couple drinks to wind down, whatever it is. And people do that. And it's actually like a physical thing or a chemical thing, right? It's, cortisol is a stress hormone, and insulin brings cortisol down. So you can't have cortisol and insulin in the blood at the same time. So that's why people typically, will binge eat or consume a lot of calories that'll raise their blood sugar at night to help bring down stress.
So it's really just snacking. Like if someone happens just to have dinner at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, that's okay. It's just don't eat your bag of chips watching TV.
So no, like, yes and no. There's 2 things to that. So the body also needs time to digest and process food. And you really don't want to eat food optimally about 4 hours before you go to sleep. Okay. Cause you can digest your food. But then like certain hormones turn on when you go to bed. So like you have growth hormone, which is, really important, and testosterone. Those are the hormones of youth. And when you're digesting your food at night and you're trying to go to sleep, it causes like a lot of different issues. It's probably too in-depth to go into this podcast for, but you're not able to sleep properly. You're not able to you're not able to produce the hormones at the optimal level each night that you would normally be able to produce. So for digestion, for rest, for your hormonal health and your hormonal profile, it's really, really good is if you can cut off food. We like to say by 7 o'clock. So most people go to bed by 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you're able to go to bed and have a good night's sleep. So,
all right. And number two, you put daily movement for 30 to 60 minutes a day. And you kind of went on to explain it more. So this doesn't even have to be resistance training or high intensity training or even going for a run, just going for a walk, just scheduling that exercise.
Yeah, walking is something that almost everybody can do. It's so good for you. So walking is probably the most underutilized form of exercise, and most people don't walk enough. There's a lot of benefits to walking: better blood pressure, better digestion. When you go for a walk outside, you increase serotonin, so the happy chemicals in the brain, feeling good. When you walk outside, you get to see sunlight, and we absorb a lot of sunlight through our eyes. So that's like a really, really good thing too. And then most people just don't move enough. So there's all sorts of positive effects from walking. The state of Michigan actually had like an advertisement a little over a decade ago and said, if all Michiganders would walk for just 30 minutes a day, we'd lower like all these different diseases by over 50%. But most people just don't move on a daily basis. And like I think we were talking earlier that society, like we have a very comfortable society. We can order DoorDash. We can drive to get our food. We don't, right. 200-300 years ago, a lot of us were hunting. If we were going to go get meat, we were hunting for it. Or a lot of us were farmers. We did physical, laborious things, and most of us just don't do that. We all have computers. We're all making digital forms of content. So it's a different society, and we just have to deliver a counterbalance for that and move every day. So,
yeah, and then I completely agree. I mean, just in scheduling it, one thing I have to try to do is just get up earlier and walk the dog. You know, I mean, I always walk the dog, but if I can do it first thing in the morning, I know that part of my exercise is done.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's probably one of the best benefits of pets, especially dogs.
That's right.
Make you walk.
One of my problems I always struggle with is like, if I'm not sweating hard, like for some reason mentally, that's not exercise for me. So I always got to convince myself that like even the simplest things, like you're saying, like walking is something that, and I think most people probably struggle with that. Like if they categorize things, right?
Yeah. So sweating is like a good thing to do, and sweating can be extremely beneficial, especially for your brain. So there's something called BDNF when you sweat. It's called brain-derived neural growth factor. And basically, there's something called neurogenesis where you can regrow and improve the neurons in your brain. And when you sweat, you do that, you create BDNF. So there's a huge positive cascade of all these different things that happen when you sweat. So it is good to sweat. It's really, really good. And there's a book that it's called What Happens to Your Brain on Exercise. It's an incredible book, and it talks about that all the way from like when you sweat, you actually produce dopamine. So dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation. You also produce serotonin, so you feel good. You have a positive, that's the happiness chemical in your brain. So you have a positive outlook on things. So sweating is so super good. Most of us should sweat, in my opinion, probably 4 to 5 days a week, but not every day. You don't need to sweat. You should move every day, but you don't need to like kill yourself every day either. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And your next two are kind of nutrition related. Number 3 would be hit your protein goal, and number 4 is drink your water. I mean, we all hear about carrying the water jug around. One thing I've really focused on recently, past few months, is about the protein. People think about calories, but I feel like it's becoming more and more evident one of the best ways to lose weight correctly and get toned is to really focus on lean protein. What would you advise someone as an easy way to make sure they're getting the right protein and the right amount each day?
Yeah, so the number one with protein is getting enough. The sources can vary just depending on your personal preference. I think that eating like more organic, more local is like a really good thing to do for a lot of different reasons. But the problem is that the two things that are absolutely essential for us to live and for us to thrive are there's something called essential fatty acids. Okay, so you need fat, okay, to live for your hormones. Okay, you also need fat for energy too, and for your brain. But protein is really important. Protein is the building block of all structures. So there's something called essential amino acids. So essential fatty acids and essential amino acids. If you're not getting protein in your diet, then you're missing out on that. So you need protein for everything from detoxification of your major organs in your body, like your liver. You also need protein to make neurotransmitters. So people who don't eat enough protein, they have issues with mental health. It's a big thing. So just getting the right amounts, and that's individual for everybody. I could never give, anybody like on a podcast, like what's a good amount of protein for you? Because people have, different things that,
right.
different individual differences. So yeah, and the thing with protein too, is it provides like a huge satiation effect. So people feel full longer. It takes longer to digest protein, which is a good thing. So you're less likely to consume excess calories.
In terms of protein, and obviously people can make their personal choices if they don't eat meat, but let's say you do eat meat. Does it really matter if you get the dark meat chicken as opposed to lean chicken breast, or you're just happy they're eating protein?
Either one is fine. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's like, there's like always optimal and realistic, but like,
just don't get it fried, right?
Yeah, probably would. Avoid fried food more often than not.
And then with your water one, I mean, are you someone who's carrying around a big water jug, or you're just mindful to drink, a cup of water every couple of hours at least?
Yeah, so that's really good. Water is really important for so many different things. For detoxification, that's people talk about like doing these detox drinks and smoothies, but water is actually probably the most important thing, and it helps with phase 3, which is elimination. So you sweat or you go to the bathroom. Water actually helps lower cortisol levels, so lower stress levels in the blood, and it also helps with your mental health when you're hydrated, so your brain can function better as well. Water, it's simple. Everybody's different. Sometimes the jugs work really well. My thing I tell people is get a water bottle that you like and you like to look at. It's around, and you can, the bigger it is, usually the easier it is to kind of manage your water intake, and drink that and put some electrolytes in there, and there you go. So good to go.
All right. And number 5 was sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night. But I think we all realize sleep is important. But what would you say to the person? Maybe it's not necessarily a workaholic, but someone with a busy schedule who's like, I'm good on 5 hours. I do 5 hours and it works for me. Could that work for people, or would you really say they definitely need 7 to 9?
Yeah, I'm a person that needs less sleep than most, but what I would tell you is the production of my work goes through the roof when I'm over 8 hours. I can get away with sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours a night, and I've done that before, but it's definitely not optimal. What happens is my physical health starts taking a toll after a while, but when I sleep 8 hours, which I do basically, I would say 6 days out of the week, is I'm always able to get more than that. Then my energy levels are better. I'm much happier. That's the thing that people don't realize is everybody has 24 hours in the day, but it's about priorities. And so many people fill their time with needless activities or mindless scrolling, right?
Right.
And if we were just had a little bit more of a vision for what's important in our life, sleep would be up there. Because if you can sleep well, everything in your life is enhanced. Sleep is, if you could say one thing, it's the number one life hack that you could do. It's the best supplement you could ever take is sleeping more. It's the best nutrition you could ever take is sleeping more. Everything improves when you can sleep. I've worked with a lot of athletes, and I say, hey, you know what? Like, if you're not going to sleep 9 hours a night, don't hire me. And that's probably the biggest advantage I have is when I'm able to produce improvements in athletic performance. What I'm really getting athletes to do is I'm training them hard, but we're starting to build all these lifestyle habits in place where they're getting the sleep, they're getting the nutrition, they're getting the rest, they're recovering faster. Just in basketball, for example, if you sleep more than 9 hours a night versus under 6, your shot percentage goes up over 10%. That's the difference of, being an all-star player and not playing, just sleeping. That's not working on physical skills. That's pretty amazing. And any hand-eye or hand-foot coordination sport is enhanced tremendously by sleeping more.
Any tips to help someone, like, Keith mentioned that person that sleeps 5 hours a night. And I think for me personally, oftentimes, especially for an entrepreneur, you have all these external stressors, you try to get your physical activity, you do the things that you think are going to help you sleep. But I think a lot of people do struggle with either staying asleep or even getting to sleep. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So you have to have a sleep routine. To sleep, we have something we came up with is 3 S's. So supplements, a warm shower, and then stretching. And this is how you induce just a wonderful night's rest. So let's say you're going to go to bed at 10. I would take supplements for sleep around 8 o'clock or 8:30. And the best supplement to take would be magnesium. All right. So there's many different forms of magnesiums. So magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate, magtine, is wonderful to help the brain and the spinal cord calm down and rest. So then take a warm shower for 10 minutes and that just relaxes the muscles. Okay. And then after that, stretch, just a regular, pick 3 or 4 stretches and just do static stretching for 15 minutes. The 2 things that we lose when we age are our muscle mass, okay, and our flexibility. And that's why we're really big into weights to improve your muscle and your strength, and big into flexibility. And that will induce just the best night's sleep that you've ever had. You'll feel relaxed, your brain will feel relaxed, and then your muscles will feel relaxed, and you'll induce a peaceful night's rest.
Yeah, I definitely think those 5 are tips that are pretty easy to remember and easy to use. Stop eating after 7 p.m. Move 30 to 60 minutes a day. Hit your protein goal. Work out how much protein you should be eating a day and focus on eating it. Drink your water. Pick your water bottle and use it throughout the day. And then sleep to 7 to 9 hours a night. I think there are definitely some great tips that are pretty easy to use. I'd like to get into now, as I talked about, I knew you 10 years ago as you were starting in a fairly small space in an industrial park. And now you have 4 locations, 60 staff. It's changed quite a bit. I know you had kind of a vision when you started, but was it a bit intimidating in moving into a space that's so kind of crowded and it's not a cheap startup? You got to buy the equipment, you got to commit to a lease. You don't know if people are going to be prepared to pay what they need to pay. So when you started in 2012, what were some of your fears, or you just had kind of that optimistic confidence?
Yeah, that's so 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, it was kind of like the only option at the time, because we were still in a bit of a recession at the time in Michigan, and no one was hiring in our space. So basically, I don't know if I really wanted to open a business, but that was kind of the only thing I could do at the time to provide for my family. And that's, kind of just took off from there. I knew if we were able to keep the doors open, I'd be able to figure things out. Going into it, I knew I didn't know how to run a business. But I knew if I could, every single month, just pay the bills and just extend the ability to work, and it would give me every day, I'd be able to learn how to run a business a little bit better. It wasn't about making $1 million or anything like that. It was just basically being able to provide for my family and being able to extend the lifespan every day of the business farther out, because I knew I was going to make mistakes in the business. So it was just about really honestly I feel like business is a game, and just keep getting to play the game
right.
Another day. But yeah, for me, when I started, there wasn't a ton of fear, because I think fear is a bit of an illusion. And because fear is just what you make it to yourself.
Right.
You can be afraid of anything.
Yeah, I mean you were starting it fearful, but I don't know if you did take a business loan or not, but it's not an easy startup to buy all that equipment, so it's just maybe a bit more of a pressure.
Yeah, so I had $8,000 in my bank account, and I was able to get an equipment loan for 32% interest rate. Ooh. So that's how I started. And they only gave me, I think they gave me like $8,500 or something like that for equipment loan. Okay. So it was pretty. There wasn't a lot, but the business I'd have a little extra money, and then I would reinvest in the business every month and keep it going. And so that's kind of how we got started. And I made my first year in business, I made $27,000, and I was the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. And it was less than half of what I was making for someone else. And it took me 3 years to get close to what I was making working for someone else before. And then the 4th year I made a little bit more. But so yeah, it was most people when they start a business. I know so many people who would like to start a business, but they don't have that ability to delay gratification for that long.
Right.
And they don't, and it's not like anything against them, but you really have to be selfless and have a vision for the future and continue to give and to serve and not expect anything in return. Hopefully, but never expect. And that's the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. A lot of times is, an employee will say, I do this work and I expect this in return, where an entrepreneur is they do the work, and maybe it comes and maybe it doesn't. When it comes, it can come pretty big. And then when it doesn't come, it can be feast or famine. For most entrepreneurs, they don't make it, especially in the gym space. And the different thing that I had is I knew if I failed, I would just start again until I figured it out. I knew that. So that's where I think the fear dissipated.
And I would say on that theme as well, delayed gratification and for kids, people looking to get into what you do, there's kind of the big shiny object of, I listed some names of some top athletes you train, Matthew Stafford. If you think of trainers out in Hollywood, they probably want to train the top athletes. But that's once you've built your reputation, those people come to you, correct? When you started, I know you played football for Central Michigan, go Chippewas, right? Yeah. And you probably had some sort of sphere of influence there. But when you started your business, you weren't able to call up the local NFL team and say, hey, send me your people. It's about creating a good product. And how did those people start to come to you, and in kind of what year, and why did they come to you?
Yeah, so basically I I was training one guy, and that guy got great results. That led to 2 more, and then those 2 guys got really good results. Usually in football, their performance on the field improves. So they were able to measurably get faster. They were measurably able to get stronger. Sometimes it was lose weights. Sometimes they needed to gain weight. But their performance for what we did in like the training transferred to their sport, to their physical abilities. And that in a sport like football, it has a massive difference on how much money somebody can make. So I've had multiple athletes get 60, 70, $80 million contracts because of the work that they were able to do and to improve their body. Now maybe it was, they have a certain skill set that they've developed and they've earned over a long period of time. But then there was a physical link that was missing. And that's what we can really do for a lot of these athletes. So that's kind of how it started. And you have to produce results in our profession to train people like that. We're not the high performance business, and high performance athletes, will invest in their body. So that's kind of how everything started.
Yeah, so to talk about your point of difference a bit, I know you've talked about your mentor was Charles Poliquin, and you do his method. What's different about his method? What's going to be different when people use MECA rather than another personal trainer?
Yeah, so we started out that way, and then we've kind of actually developed like our own, training systems and processes as we've grown. I learned a lot of the foundation, the fundamentals from Charles, and then he used like a nonlinear based periodization system, and we use something called an exercise based periodization system. So that's we've kind of evolved the business to that point. And what we've been able to do is understand where the athlete is at currently after with our assessment, and then give them the right exercises or stimulation via those exercises to get that adaptation that we want. So if someone needs to get faster, we can make them faster. If they need to get faster at a certain distance, we can make them faster at that distance. Some sports they need to accelerate. That's like really important is acceleration, deceleration. We know how to do that for that athlete. In some sports, they need to run fast at top end or need to hold a speed at a certain point. We can help them do that. And there's different things that you need to focus on. Like you've coached soccer, you've been involved in the game of soccer for a long period of time. There's different skills. There's different kids that have different skills, right? And so some kid might be great on the ball and some kid might be a great shooter. Somebody might be a great passer, but it's incorporating where they deficient at and giving them an extra skill set. That's what we're really able to do on the physical side of things. And that's the advantage to like a personal skills coach is they can say, okay, you're deficient in this skill. Let's work on that skill versus maybe the team coach that's trying to incorporate the entire team together. It's like, hey, we need to work together as a team and focus on, these tactical abilities where we can really hone in on the individual skill set and make that better.
And obviously, you've gone from being like an expert in your field and learning every day, and we can tell the passion you have about training people and just physical activity itself. But to go from that, growing your business now to managing 60 people is a whole different skill set. And I know you have a management team that helps you. I know we've spoken about that you come from a big family. You've got one of 8 kids and you were the oldest. Do you think not that you manage your brothers and sisters, but being the oldest of 8 kids, has that helped you in managing a team of 60 people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think whether you're the oldest, if you have, 1 or 2 younger siblings, or if you have 8, I think there's a level of responsibility that's put on you right away. I wasn't always the best child, but I did help my mother out like quite a bit at home. And then there's the other thing is there's an expectation of the way that you need to act. So I think that's something that I do for our staff is I set a good example about the way you should act. You should show up with joy every day. You should smile. We talked about like yesterday, I gave a talk to one of our locations, and there's 3 bullet points that I had, and it's number 1 is the 3 acts of service in our company is you say hi using someone's name, you say goodbye using someone's name, and you anticipate their needs. The second bullet point was smile. Like I expect my employees to smile when people walk in the door.
Right.
I think it's so important. Yeah. Well, like you have an opportunity for genuine connection with another human being. Why wouldn't you not like smile and recognize them? That's more important than anything else, like making money or having like a good product or anything like that. But like just smiling and making eye contact and saying hi. Like those are like, I think those are the manners that are missing a bit in society because people are too busy. People are too busy for that human connection. And I don't like that. And so I have a place where I can say, hey, this is the way we're going to operate. And then the last thing I talked about was be your future self today. And so everybody has this vision of who they want to be in 3 years or 10 years or whatever it is. I want to be someone better or different. Well, you can be that person today and make that person 10 years from now proud of who you were today. And those are things that I talk with our team. Those basic fundamentals of acting in the right way, and what I would say is the right way as a human being, being polite, being respectful, being joyful, being courteous to other people, recognizing other people. Those are the important things in life, more important than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I know definitely, as I mentioned, I've seen you grow, and I know you've got quite a streamlined operation, and you want all your staff to fall into your vision, which I feel they do right now. But over the past 10 years, I'm sure that hasn't always been that way. You've maybe let someone who wasn't quite exhibiting those values stay on a bit too long, or someone that maybe wasn't being that effective at delivering the training, because you really care about them and you wanted them to succeed, you didn't maybe cut them soon enough. What would be one thing you could look back on where it's not even the employee's fault, but something where you just maybe should have cut it sooner and corrected it sooner?
Oh my goodness. That was a struggle in our business for so long. And the reason is we didn't have core values that we were hiring on. We would just hire anybody. And that's like so bad for not only the organization and the people that we're serving.
Not so much anybody, right? But somebody who was in the space, but you felt you could train them.
Yeah.
But maybe they didn't have those inert things.
Yeah, exactly. So they had like the degree, they had like maybe the technical experience. So they were on paper, they were right for the job, right?
Right.
But they didn't have like the same core values. We weren't aligned in like what's important when you show up to work. And that doesn't mean that they're like a bad person or they're wrong or anything like that at all. It just means that they weren't going to be a good fit for our organization. So what we had to do is we started hiring on our core values and really talking about like positivity is important. Teamwork is important. So people that don't believe in teamwork, that are more individualistic, which is fine. Like I have no issue with that, but just wasn't going to jive with our team. Those people would start leaving because we would ask them to support their teammates. And they didn't want to do that. That was
right.
that wasn't, what was important to them. And that's fine. So we really like focused on like, we had a situation where we hired like 12 people in 6 months and turned over like 10 of them because we hired them in, but they weren't value fixed. So we're moving them on quickly, which was good, but you can't grow business like that. So we really got dialed in with our core values and our hiring process and who is important to bring into our organization. It really changed everything for us in terms of like the ease. We still have issues in our business, but we don't really have a cultural issues anymore, which is so nice.
That's great. Now, one of the final questions I want, and it's something we ask all our guests. One of my favorite sayings I've always heard is that every job is a self-portrait. So in believing that the qualities you have as a person are reflected in your business, what are 3 compliments that you would give yourself about qualities you have?
It's changed a lot over the last 10 years. One thing that hasn't changed though is I have a really good vision and a picture of what I want my life to be like. And sometimes I put my values on other people, which is okay. But if I don't have like values, if you don't have values, or society will give you your values, and that's society. It's not always a good thing to choose society's values. Do you want all of society's values for your children? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. The other thing is I have a lot of empathy for other people. So just how I was raised, I think, and the different struggles and pain points that I've gone through, I really, I think I understand the human condition really well. We're only here on Earth for a short period of time. And I think the time that we're here on Earth, it's to serve other people and to be a force for good in the world. So, but like emotion, empathy for other people, I think is something and then also like emotional intelligence. Like that might go back to that, but just understanding people, how they tick, how I can help serve them. A lot of people will say that they understand people, but it's for like for manipulation, so they can get something for what they want. I don't think that's actually a good thing at all. I think it's just showing up, smiling and trying to serve them. I think that's one of the things that I think is most important.
Ultimately in your business and in coaching, people are paying money to come to you to get results that they want. So you have to really know what they want, and then you're the guy to draw the roadmap to get to what they want. So it's not, hey, I want you to do this. It's like, I want you to hit your goals. And and get there. And then, this is called the Self-Belief and Influence podcast. So like all athletes and people, I'm sure there was at one time where you really had to kind of dig into your reserves of self-belief to kind of get over a hump in something, maybe business, maybe life. And can you elaborate on maybe what would be one thing that you had to do that for? And then lastly, you've talked about wanting to have a force for good. What is one influence that you hope to really have on your staff and your clients?
So maybe like a difficult time that I went through. Yeah. Oh, last year was probably one of the worst years of my life. So my business partner's wife took her own life, which is a bit heavy to talk about on the podcast, but that's what happened. And my wife was really close with her. We were really close with her family. Our daughters are the same ages and all that. And so that happened. And then my wife had like medical conditions where she was in and out of the hospital for 6 months. And we just had our 5th child. And I'm sitting there with 5 kids, my 5th baby in my arms. And in like our business, we had just made a investment. Our business, because I wasn't able to put in the physical time at work. So we had invested in a new startup. We had our other business was taking a hit because of that. Basically nothing was working well, and there was too much to do. And my family's like kind of falling apart. It was pretty awful, actually.
It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. And I just asked myself, is this the point in my life that's going to break me? Is this going to break me? So that was a difficult point. And then self-belief for me is like looking back, and I just, you tell yourself stories. That's what I think it's important to tell yourself stories, who you are, where you're going, and where you've come from. My grandfather was born in the Great Depression. His father left him when he was 6 years old. And my father at 7 years old had to start working to raise the family, to pay, to eat. And he had 4 younger brothers and sisters and 1 or 2 older. And then he fought in World War II. And then he worked in the General Motors factory plant for 40 years. And he's one of the greatest generations. And I thought about him and like what he went through. And I said, if he can do it, I can do this. My struggle is not as hard as his. I show up in gym shorts every day to work. And so telling your stories is really, really important, really powerful. Self-belief comes from maybe not like what you're capable of doing, but what other people have done before you and what they're capable of doing. And then also like it's just part of your story that we all have to go through hard things, and that's okay. Going through hard things is okay. And so it's like, is this going to break you? It's like, not just one more day. As long as it doesn't break me today, it's okay. And so that was that. And then what was the other question?
Well, I mean, in a way, you almost answered it. I mean, about it's the influence you want to have. But I love that the influence your grandfather or great grandfather, they've had influence, past their time on Earth. The example they set, fighting in World War I, dealing with the Great Depression, dealing with a dad leaving at 6, is gone over 50, 70, 80 years to you now. I mean, that's a generational influence. So I guess another way of framing it, as your family remembers great granddad David down the line, what would you hope that they remember?
Yeah, honestly, the one thing that I live my life on right now and is love. Just loving other people. I think that's the most important thing. I tell my kids every single day, like I love them. Tell my people I work with I love them. I really do. I think people are really, really, really awesome. I genuinely love people. People are really unique, weird, difficult to deal with at times, and we all have our own struggles. But genuinely, there's just a lot of good in people, and that's the way I choose to see the world too. So that would be like the thing is he just loved people, and he was there for people. So yeah.
Hey, that's a great message, and we love that you come in, and I love knowing you, Dave. You're a great person, and I can't believe it's really 10 years since I first kind of ran into you, and appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Nate,
Keith,
let's ruminate. Dave, with a great guest.
Yeah, his energy was infectious. He really was a very positive guy, and I thought overall his interview was really, really interesting.
Yeah, and Rob, and there were so many technical things I wanted to ask him about personal training, but we didn't really get to any. I mean, like he said, it is a people business, and he's great with people, and ultimately his job is helping people achieve their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I did find it interesting. You know, he has sort of like this, I'm not sure the right way to phrase it, but sort of a survivalist mentality when he first started his business, right? Just like winning the day and making it to the next day, and sort of it snowballed, and he sort of controlled that snowball and just kept it going. And then, you know, ultimately, I know he said he has a vision, but to start that way, I thought was interesting, because you don't always hear it start that way.
Yeah. Yeah. What were some things that maybe surprised you that he said?
The struggles. I honestly, when we asked him about some of the struggles he had in his industry or his business, and his biggest struggle, I didn't expect it to be something, certainly the heavy subject he addressed, but something so far on in his journey. I expected the struggles to be earlier in his journey, but it seemed like he almost relished those struggles in the beginning. Like he almost relished that he didn't expect much, but that he got so much more personal fulfillment out of his business rather than, you know, financial fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we do talk about struggles, you think about overcoming the humps in the early days, but I think a lot of us, we can think back to some of the struggles where you had a lot of stuff going on in your personal life, and how did you deal with that and keep a business life, and those two are never fully separate. So it's how do you deal with that, you know? And like you say, you know, he's grown his business to be successful, but, you know, his main struggle, you know, was related to that subject last year, as he's, you know, big and doing very well.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Well, you know, I think, you know, as we move through these self-belief and influence podcasts, you know, we really want to hear about how self-belief helped people as they grew, and the influence that they want to have. Because like Dave said with his vision, I mean, your vision is often bigger than yourself, and one day you want to have an influence. And that was one thing I really liked, was hearing about one of the source of his self-beliefs was, you know, a relative who's not there anymore, went through hard times in the past 100 years. And that's something that, you know, I've always tried to do with my kids is, you know, I kind of find it funny. I was marching my daughter into World War II documentaries at age 9 or 10. I mean, I just feel that they should know about it.
Yeah.
You know, and my great granddad died in World War One. My granddad, although I never had a great relationship with him, he did fly bombers in World War II. So you have to respect that, you know, and, you know, yeah, former generations, they leave a legacy, as we hope to leave a legacy one day.
Absolutely.
All right.
Another one in the books.
Another one in the books. Hey, looking forward to, I know we got a couple of great guests lined up for the next couple of weeks, so looking forward to speaking with them.
Excellent. Same. Thanks.
Thanks.